Hi everyone, Charles Vamadeva here again, and welcome to another episode of Real Estate Sizzle Talk. And I'm here today with Lacy Williams.
Yes, sir.
Hi Lacy, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
Excellent, thank
And
you.
appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born and raised here in the Temecula Valley.
Okay.
I've lived here my entire life. Been selling real estate here full time for the last 13 years.
Good deal. In the Temecula, Murrieta, Menifee, Winchester area?
Correct.
That's kind of where you specialize.
Uh-huh.
Good deal. So you're well qualified to talk about our topic today.
Okay.
Which is really an epidemic affecting sellers, buyers, realtors, and this is it. This is the topic. Loans, deals falling out way into the process. Sometimes 25, 30 days into the process. How does that affect, if you're an agent representing a seller, how does that affect your seller? In what ways is your seller affected when that deal falls out way into the process?
Well, you have to figure once the sellers get their property into escrow, they're ready to start the process of moving on to the next phase of their lives. So they're either, if they're relocating out of state, then that's an even bigger step. If they're relocating to a larger home, wherever their next move is, they're already planning that. So they're already out shopping for their next home. A lot of times they've already put an offer in on that
They've committed to something else.
Correct. So, now you're not only affecting that buyer and that seller, but also the next seller, and then depending on what they have going on after that. So it's a chain reaction.
School districts, kids changing school districts.
Yeah, the sellers have a lot of things in process. Moving companies, storage, changing schools for the kids. There's a lot to it.
That can't be a fun conversation. What is that conversation like when you have to be the one to pick up the phone, call your seller and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, your deal's not going to close. Well, hopefully it's going to close late. But in some cases, it's not going to close at all. How is that conversation?
It is awkward. It's a hard conversation to have. So, you try to do as much as you can up front to prevent that from happening. And, I am very straightforward with my sellers throughout the process. And I let them know, this could still be a potential issue. This could still be a potential issue. I never tell them we're good to go until we have the funding and the recording done.
So I heard you say prevent it from happening. Can you really prevent the buyer's loan from falling out? I mean, what role, I guess, let me rephrase that. What role and responsibility do you have as the realtor? You're not the one doing the loan, you're not the lender, and sometimes you're kind of far removed from that whole part of the process, but what is your responsibility as a realtor?
So when I have the listing and I have an offer that comes to me on one of my listings, I want to call and speak to that lender before I even present the offer to my sellers. I want to verify that the lender has, verified employment and they've seen the tax returns and they have verified all of the income and everything that was reported to them. If somebody says they make $100,000, did they write half of that off? There's a lot that goes into getting to that approval. How much have you actually verified of that?
So you're kind of sniffing around for problems early in the process.
Correct.
How is that phone call received by a loan officer usually? Do you find resistance? Do lenders gladly oblige, hey, sure, let me tell you the whole scoop?
Depending on what the circumstances are. If they've got an A-paper buyer, they'll give you all the information in the world. But if it's somebody who's, they're piecing together a little bit of a tricky loan, they will dance around the question sometimes. They will not be very forthcoming with information. And when you get that vibe, you want to just push even harder and get maybe something a little more concrete in terms of an approval. Do you have a DU approval?
I would imagine that you have a lot to lose as a realtor representing your seller, and so that's impetus to have that awkward conversation with the loan officer to kind of draw out any problems and issues.
I would rather have that conversation at the beginning than the deal's falling apart 3 weeks into it.
I hear you.
So,
what are some of the common reasons why the buyer's loan falls out, especially halfway through the process? Why not day one? Why day 21 or 22? What are some of the common reasons?
I think a lot of times, income isn't calculated properly. The lender's not working the numbers properly. They aren't taking certain things into consideration. By the time the underwriter gets the file and they start digging deeper, and they're coming up with things and questions. So it's just a matter of making sure that people are digging deep up front and that you have a solid approval.
And you're having these awkward conversations with the lender early in the process.
Yes.
To try to prevent this from happening.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other common reasons why the deal falls out? I mean, maybe something that's most common in this area.
I think a lot of times when the lenders are doing a loan approval for a buyer, they'll use a blanket tax rate of 1.25. And in this area, we've got taxes that, are 1.5, 1.75. We've got some neighborhoods that are over 2% in property taxes.
Winchester.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, these payments are being calculated and these approvals are being generated using that, 1.25 tax rate. And by the time they get the file together and they submit the actual taxes for the property, that payment's off by $200, $300, $400, and that just completely blows the whole loan approval.
It's something so subtle, but something that could have such a devastating effect
Absolutely.
on the transaction. And you obviously, you don't come across as someone that's shy to have those conversations with
the
loan officer. What are you telling your buyer during the process, or before they go into contract? What are some of the things that you're telling your buyer to do or not to do?
So when I'm on the buyer side of it, you can't always assume that their lender is having these conversations with them. Buyers don't understand that you can't get an $800 gift for your birthday for Christmas or whatever and just go deposit $800 cash into your bank account.
Right.
The lender's going to want to know where that came from. You can't go sell a car and deposit $4,000 into that account. You can't get gift funds and just go. You can't be making random deposits into your bank accounts. You can't go shopping for furniture and appliances and have your credit run to see if you qualify. That's all going to hurt your credit score.
Good deal.
So
you don't sound like you're afraid to have those direct conversations. Lacy Williams. If someone wants to have you represent them in buying or selling a home, how do they get a hold of you?
You can reach me direct on my cell phone at 951-634-4433 or via email at myagentlacy@gmail.com.
Thanks a lot for being on the show.
Absolutely.
It's been good conversation and good information there. Guys, if you want to get a hold of Lacy, you have the number on the screen. This is Charles Vamadeva. You watched another episode of Real Estate Sizzle Talk, and we'll see you on the next one.